Before we get into this show, you might already have noticed that this is no longer Success is a Myth. This is now To Create is Human. That's the title of the show. I'm actually currently undergoing the rebrand. And my first thought was, I shouldn't release this episode until the rebrand is done. But I think that putting this episode out now, instead of waiting until everything is perfect, actually goes right in hand with kind of the new theme of the show and with what I'm trying to more live in line with. And that is the fact that I'm willing to ship the product now and just kind of focus on perfecting the visuals of everything later. In the episode you're about to listen to, I do go over the rebrand, why it's happening, what's going to happen moving forward, what the show is going to look like moving forward. I've just been itching to update the show and just get it rolling and get it out there. So thank you. What's up? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm actually doing a complete rebrand of this podcast. Also, I'm going into a new season of the podcast. So it just felt like a good time to rebrand, get a clean slate, fresh start. So why am I changing what it was called, Success is a Myth, to what it is now going to be called, which is To Create is Human? Now, let me tell you why I don't like the name Success is a Myth. 8 or so months ago when I started this podcast, the title Success is a Myth kind of just came to me. I was trying to define exactly what I wanted to represent and what I wanted my podcast to be about. And the idea that I wanted to embody is that, success, this word success has been flattened by society. It's been flattened to only mean money, metrics, hustle culture, like all of this crap, right? It's even just in your head when you hear the word success, you're like, okay, this dude lives on a beach in Florida and makes Instagram ads and makes $1 million every week. Something stupid like that. That's the picture that I get in my head when somebody says, oh, I'm so successful, or like success, just the word success. I'm like, okay. And so originally with this podcast, I wanted to give success more of a full meaning back. I wanted to kind of bring some of that life back into it. And even though my title was kind of critical of hustle culture and of just the word success in general, the societal norm of success, even though my title was critical of that, I feel like the word success within that title was still doing all of the gravitational work in that title, in that phrase. The word success, I don't know. I was listening to another, I was going through podcasts just this last month or so, and I realized I found a couple that had the word success in it and the word failure in it, and there was something about just having those words in there that gave me the ick. And I'm like, am I giving people the ick simply by having the word success in there, even though I'm trying to say, hey, this word is a myth? That tension, I constantly felt a tension there. And I also, when I started this podcast, didn't have a clear core target audience. And now I do. I spent the first, 6 or 8 months of this podcast trying to pretend like I didn't want to have conversations with filmmakers because I didn't just want to be another video podcast, right? Just another like videography podcast. And I do not want to be just another one. But more and more, I've just started to realize I am a creator more than anything else in my entire life. I am a creator. I'm somebody who creates things, whether I like it or not, whether I try to shy away from it or not. I think those are the most beneficial conversations that I can bring to the world. Also, most of my connections are creative people, but no, I am flat out a creator. I've always had to make something. It's just an itch that I have to scratch. When I remember being in high school, English class was my favorite in high school because I enjoyed writing. Hated reading, absolutely hated reading. Hated all the literature crap, but I really enjoyed writing short stories, writing narrative stuff. Even writing essays was not terrible. Like an argumentative essay was not the worst thing in the world. Because I was still formulating my own thoughts, putting them on paper or digitally. But I was creating something out of my mind. I was getting all of my thoughts and other resources and sources on the internet and putting them into one essay. And this is before AI, okay? So I literally I enjoyed doing this stuff. I didn't cheat, you know? Okay, I'm a teacher's pet. All right, there you go. But I enjoyed creating stuff, okay? I also wanted to become a rapper at one point. I wrote a lot of music. Maybe calling it music is a insult to real, true music, but I wrote a lot of lyrics and I wrote some songs that I wanted to perform and I wanted to become a rapper. Okay, so I was kind of creative in that way too. I also, at one point, wanted to write a book. And so I literally got like 5 chapters done in this book that was about Hawaiian mythology. And I lived in Hawaii for 4 years, so I wrote this book about Hawaii mythology and all of the gods that are in Hawaiian mythology. And it was essentially like a Hawaiian ripoff of Percy Jackson, like the Greek gods, Percy Jackson. It was essentially like a Hawaiian ripoff of that. Just because I was inspired by Percy Jackson, and I was like, oh, I went to Hawaii for 4 years. I went to school there. I know a lot of the culture, not a lot of the culture. I know a little bit of the culture. I did a lot of research on these Hawaiian gods, and I wanted to write this book. And I still go back and visit that every now and then, just to kind of remind myself, like, dude, you are a creator. In your core, at your heart, you're a creator. I like talking to myself here, and if that touches you the way that it touches me, I think we can kind of, give some, get some a little bit. Okay, this is not what I'm meaning for this to turn out into. Okay, I'm sorry. And if that speaks to you the way that it speaks to me, I think this podcast is going to be a good fit for us here. And so here we are, getting a fresh rebrand, getting a fresh season of this show. I'm not starting a new show because I feel like a lot of my guests and a lot of the conversations that I had with those guests are very applicable to what I'm doing moving forward. But moving forward, this is going to be a show for creatives. I want to help you create. And the name is perfect, actually. It's inspired by a conversation that I had with Kensington, a really good friend of mine. To create is human was a quote that he said in his last episode with me. I think that quote right there, that phrase is so powerful. To create is human. You don't have to identify as a creative person to create something. Literally every day of your life, you are forming the rest of your life with the choices you make today. You're creating your life. You're creating a life with your spouse. You're creating, I don't know, it could be a business, a podcast for me, literally anything. A family could be anything. You're creating something every single day. So again, to create is human. I think if we view it that way, you don't have to feel creative to know that you are creating something. But also, creativity is a muscle to be stretched. If you're consuming, you're not creating. My most fulfilled moments have come from when I am making something more than I am just intaking knowledge and information. I think it's really good to get an education. I think it's really good to get an idea for what others are doing so you can get inspired and you can understand, dude, they just set the bar here. If I want to do something that level, I got to bring my A game, right? But diminishing returns, right? There's too much of anything is too much of any good thing is a bad thing. Even if you're just trying to create all day, every day. I mean, exactly what I said at the beginning of this thing, hustle culture, right? Don't kill yourself. Just what I'm trying to do in this show here is help you create, help you feel like you can create and that you're not just another number, because that's kind of what I feel sometimes. And so with this show, I'm not interested in showing outcomes and rankings and like big numbers, right? I am more interested in process, identity, becoming something. Creation, like at its core, right? I feel like all those things go hand in hand with creation. And so that is, I guess, in as short of a sentence as I can say it, why I'm rebranding from success is a myth, which again, it's not a bad concept, but I just feel like the word success in there is killing the show. It's kind of robbing it of any presence that it may already have. I don't know. Maybe that's me overthinking it, but that's kind of what I feel like. And I just kind of feel allergic to the words success and failure at this point. I'm just like, you see so much stuff online that's talking about you gotta fail, man, fail a lot, fail fast. Like failure, I failed my way to success. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just too much for me at this point. So yeah, I don't feel like I identify with success is a myth as much as I identify with to create is human. That was my favorite quote from a recent episode. I had it as the title of the episode. I had it as the thumbnail of the episode. And then the more I got thinking, because I've been feeling that I've needed a rebrand for several months now. The more I got thinking, I was like, dude, what better name for my podcast? So huge props to Kensington. In fact, we can work out an endorsement deal later. I heard once, if you're not embarrassed by your first product, you're not launching soon enough. Like you're launching too late if you're not embarrassed by your first product. I am super embarrassed with how that first episode of Success is a Myth turned out. I feel like even though I was just trying to capture kind of my journey and story with my wife, which was we had a great conversation. Again, it was a great conversation and it was a fine episode, but I feel really embarrassed with how I presented everything. I presented it more, I feel that I presented it more as, look what I've done, look how far I've come, and you can do it too. And that is, that's just the opposite of the vibe that I wanted to give off. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. So specifically with this new season 2 is going to be about storytelling, what story means. I want to become a better storyteller. I want to help you become a better storyteller. And so I'm going through this right along with you. Over the past month, I've watched more YouTube videos and listened to more podcasts and also asked more people about story and what it means to them and storytelling and how they tell stories and what they think makes a good story versus a bad story, whatever. I have done so much research. Like I've done way more than I thought that I ever would on this topic, but it's been so good. I am really interested in hearing how I can make better stories. I really want to just tear some of my stuff to shreds and be like, that was a terrible, terrible decision to do that. It would have been a way better project, video, photo, podcast, story had I done this. And so that's, learning here, growing. I'm really trying to dive into story as deep as I can. And there are a lot of different kinds of stories. Obviously you want to frame a feature film a lot differently than you're going to film a short film versus a documentary versus a podcast versus a social media post. I'm going to do my best to dive into story, both with a couple solo episodes like this and then also inviting guests on who are fantastic storytellers to really get the nitty-gritty on what makes their content stick out. So yeah, season 2 is going to be all about story. Why we as humans need stories in our lives, the difference between telling a story and communicating an experience. There's a big difference there. What it is about a well-told story that can change somebody's life. What it is that makes a story stick with you long after you've experienced it, or long after you've watched it, long after you've read it, listened to it, consumed it. What is it that makes a story stick with you, But ultimately, how to become a better storyteller. And so I'm learning right alongside you here. I'm trying to become a better storyteller every single day. But real quick, to start off this new season, I'm going to just give a fun fact about myself every episode, just something random. In this episode, my fun fact is that I'm short and that I don't mind it. Okay, I'm 5'8". My wife likes to tell me that I'm 5'7". I like to think that I'm 5'8" when I put shoes on. But no, I don't mind being short. I really don't. I don't mind it. I don't mind having a little bit of extra legroom in planes and in cars, Like, I don't mind, being able to fit on whatever bed I want to. I don't mind not being able to dunk a basketball. I'm fine with being blocked by every tall guy that I ever play against in basketball. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with not having to break my neck to look down at my wife because we're the same height. Okay. I don't mind it. I don't mind having to jump to high five somebody in the air, Yeah, I would just say that being short is very underrated. Actually, I think that short people live longer. So there you go. I'm going to live longer than you. And I don't even have to say your name. You know who you are. I've talked to you lately about being tall and me being short, and I'm proud of it, okay? I don't care. I don't care. Here we go. Let's get into this thing. Episode 1 of season 2. I just wanted to kind of break down the word story a little bit here. I don't want to really get too in the weeds here, but it came from originally, and I think this is like 1200 or 1300, like literally the years, like somewhere, 800 or 900 years ago now. It came from a Proto-Indo-European background. I don't know how to pronounce these root words that it came from, but the definitions of these root words were to see and to know, or one who knows. Ancient Greek came from another site said that it came from ancient Greek, derived from historia, meaning learning through inquiry or knowledge acquired by investigation. So that's a little bit interesting, I guess. So in the 13th century, story was first used in English, actually, to describe a narrative of important events, or more like a historical record. So like a factual thing that happened. And then, as the years and the decades and the centuries went on, it slowly kind of meant more of a literary sense of it, like a tale, like a tall tale. So more of like an imaginative style, like think like Shakespeare, a lot of stuff that he wrote. Or maybe, was it not even Shakespeare that wrote all that stuff? Was it somebody else? Anyways, so fictitious events meant to entertain. Now it's come to mean kind of a variety of things. It can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, but in a sense, I feel like story more now represents, depending on what you're looking at, because it still can very well represent a factual account of something. Somebody's story is their personal experience. But it can also mean a fictional tale, something that was written, something that was created, something that was made up. And I don't think made up is the right word. I think curated is a really good word. Something that was curated for entertainment. That's kind of just a very brief history of where the word story came from. Definitions: an account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment, an account of past events in somebody's life or in the evolution of something. So kind of like a situation that is viewed relative to what we know about it, like what that person knows about it, which may not always be true, but it's the situation relative to how they view it, relative to what they know. A narrative, either true or fictitious, designed to interest, amuse, or instruct the hearer or reader. A report or account of a matter, statement, or allegation. So here's a lot of synonyms: adventure, anecdote, article, autobiography, drama, fable, fantasy, feature, history, legend, myth, narrative, record, report, tale, account. I don't think I put account on there. And account is also another one. That's just very briefly some definitions. I don't want to just bore you with definitions, okay? But that's very briefly just some definitions and like a little bit of the history of where the word story came from. Now, what do I think story is? Because, you don't just come to a podcast to listen to me just read stuff off the internet. I think that a story at its core shows somebody or something that used to be this way become this way. So they used to be one way. Now they're another way. Something happened in the middle. That's your story. Everything in the middle is what your story is. And I got this definition, or at least the base of it. I've kind of embellished a little bit of it, and I reworded it in my own words. But I got this definition from my good friend Talmadge Thane, who is actually another podcast producer, does some killer work for Film Lab. But I was on a phone call with him once, and I was kind of asking him. I can't remember what I asked him. It was a while ago that I asked him this now, but it really helped me kind of simplify it, because I feel like a lot of the time we overcomplicate simple words. And story, at least in the sense of content, like we're trying to tell a good story that will retain our audience within our podcast, within each social clip, YouTube videos, brand campaigns, brand stories, commercials, like all this stuff, right? We're trying to tell something to captivate our audience, to keep them engaged, and obviously to have a call to action at the end. And in simple terms, I'll just say it one more time. I was this way, now I'm this way. And I've kind of used that as a little bit of the benchmark for my content, no matter who I'm doing it for. I don't ever want my character to just stay the same throughout the film or throughout the brand highlight on social media, throughout the podcast. I want to see something change, even if it's not, I mean, they don't need to change themselves on the spot while I'm interviewing them, but I want them to tell me in an engaging way how they changed, what changed them. So that's just that. Again, that's just my definition, generously provided by Talmadge. I was on a phone call with him. Love that man. Great definition. Or maybe instead of a definition, because I feel like, a definition feels finite, fixed, like unmovable, immovable. Maybe viewpoint, or like, I don't know. What a great viewpoint of the word story. Cool. And that's all that I wanted to explore today. Thank you so much for listening or watching. I got some really exciting stuff in the works. I got some amazing guests who are just fantastic storytellers coming up. The immediate episode that will be following this one, though, is where my wife and I read over 100 people's insights from LinkedIn on this question: what makes a story stick with you long after it's over? I asked this question on LinkedIn the other day, and I offered $50 to the person with the best response to this question. And I had way more people comment on that post than I was anticipating. 260 something comments in total, but about 110-ish original comments, and then the rest of that is like, me replying or other people replying, just the conversations and the comments after. But it was so hard to whittle down our favorite one that eventually, I Venmo'd that person $50, the person that won. But no, so in this next episode, my wife and I are going to be going into those, reading our favorites, diving into what makes them our favorites. It is jam-packed of amazing content about storytelling, what makes a story stick with you after it's over, what makes a good storyteller. There are some fantastic quotes and insights and just amazing people that poured a lot of their time into that post. Crazy what offering $50 on LinkedIn can get you. So that's the next episode in this. That'll come out next week. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you then.